for those who use services on scooters, they need to access justice through platforms that we create. But because of the intricacies of the sector, and I'm glad and I'm happy that in our committee, and which was the resolution we took as SADC and led by South Africa, of course, that platform economy will now be led by a convention instead of a recommendation. That then will enhance the vulnerable part covered at convention level, which will affect and influence local legislation. Our LRA and basic conditions and employment equity will have to be adapted on justice once that convention is done. So it's quite an interesting question, this one, but I think we need to have a very thorough discussion about how we specifically do that, not in the setup, because here we're talking about the plan, the 5-year plan. We can talk about that and the expansions and how we can do using that. And of course, the other income generation strategies that we have and all of that, that can also influence policy. We can talk about that. Into the next question, Honorable Mugne, management. Let me respond directly to that. Thank you to my corporate services who has provided the detail of where we are, where we didn't foresee that question. The total vacancy rate, Honorable Mkwele, is 3.55 that we have as matters stand now. And the total vacancies we have is about 31 out of almost 900, staff members. And you specifically asked whether we have management vacancies. Yes, we do. We have 5 of them. And we already, by the end of June, 3 interviews are set down for those ones. And interestingly, Chairperson, we can also note that even the director of the CCMA position will become vacant on the 1st of April. But already we have advertised the position. We've received applicants. Interviews will happen in July. And it's the highest position in the organization, but we've already acted on it to make sure that we satisfy what Honorable Mkwele is asking about. And as a result of that, we are acting quite actively on that. But what I must explain is that every time you promote someone to a higher position, a vacancy opens. That's what happens in our case. As people grow and they leave positions, they get the vacancies open. So it almost becomes a revolving door. But I'm sure that members will appreciate, if you look at the percentage, which is 3.55, that we're not actually doing badly in terms of that. There are a number of unfunded vacancies that we have. So those ones we're not advertising because we can't afford them. So that'll be the case in that regard. So we have taken steps about and how long will it take. I've answered that part on how long it's going to take, and then the others will follow as well. While we think we're winning, the new vacancies arise. For example, if the new director comes from internally in the organization, it will mean therefore that whoever is holding a position there, when they become director, then that position becomes vacant. So that's just a dynamic that we're dealing with there. And then almost last question, because the other questions were just to be specific, Chair, there's a position at management level which deals with the National Senior Commissioner that is responsible for all the provinces. We call it the National Senior Commissioner Dispute Resolution. The interview is already set for the 30th of June. And also we have a senior commissioner position at management level. A recommendation is already made. And then by month end, we would have covered even the very important one on the 25th of the senior manager governance. So I'm giving you the specifics as supported by my team there, so that you see how serious we take vacancies, especially in the environment and the nature of the work that we do, already having staff members that are carrying more than one function because of the shortages in budget. So people are doing much more than they should. So when there's a vacancy, we just act quickly to just cover that. And thanks for that info from the team. On the very exciting question, number 4, yeah, Honorable Nkopane, you really got me excited when you asked this question. What can CCMA do or play beyond dispute resolution? It's a very, very, in fact, when I look at the question, you can write a publishable paper on this question about the role we can play beyond dispute resolution. We've already taken a number of actions beyond dispute resolution. In our presentation, where we talk about our mandate, just to be specific, we must invest and spend more energies on dispute prevention, because it will cost us less, because many of the disputes that we have, we can prevent them. It's just that resources don't allow anymore. We were able to go to workplaces and do a lot of conferences and do a lot of know your rights, and also share a number of issues. It's part of our dispute prevention strategies. And when companies invite you to talk about what is a dismissal, so how can we improve workplace relationships, we do that. And as a result, there's no need to refer disputes, because people understand how to manage themselves and how to manage their workplaces. So that strategy is quite useful of dispute prevention. But there's a number of these that we can talk about that we feel we can contribute. Let me give you another interesting example. Parliament recently has issued a remarkable bill for the first time in our country, actually. We have a mediation bill. And if you look at specific paragraphs of what is intended with the mediation bill, it's not doing the mediation of the work that CCMA do and with the bargaining councils. This is a much broader mediation that the state is introducing, and the panel that must be created, the community reach of that mediation is quite exciting to look at. How, when you look at the history of CCMA, you will note that the function that we do actually was intended not just to cover labor. It was supposed to cover other disputes, like when you've got the student protest about the fees must fall. We were mediating that dispute despite the fact that it's not within our legislative domain. So in collaboration with such efforts of the state in encouraging mediation in all disputes, including divorce mediations and all kinds of mediations, issues relating to road accident funds, the mediations in that, we saw the judge president of Gauteng, what he introduced in terms of making mediation quite compulsory. This happens in the match courts as well. So if you expand such functions, because CCMA commissioners are seasoned mediators, seasoned arbitrators, there's type of disputes that we can do beyond our statutory mandate to assist, of course, with resources permitting. But I've got about almost 10 points, which I will not present now, which we can play in influencing economic policy. We can. Because our function, it was never intended by Parliament that we should just be focused on conciliating, mediating labor disputes only. So this step taken by the state is a commendable one. We took interest in it. Of course, we didn't play a part in it, but it's mediation, and we do have mediators. How we can assist in the economic development and preservation, it is through the resources that we have as a state for us to do. So there's a number of those things, including also the issue of economic development, in the sense that as government, I think the time has come for us to think beyond just having a cap in the hand and asking for monies to be given to us. We have to somehow find a way to be self-sustainable and be active in the economy without losing our independence and our impartiality in resolving disputes. And such engagements will directly have impact on certain socio-economic factors, including some of the cost that is carried by the state, which we can carry, because we have to circulate money somehow when we do some of these functions. So like I said, it's a full paper you can write on our impact beyond dispute. I've never heard such a topic before put in this way, that says, role beyond dispute resolution. And dispute prevention was the first thing, but now it opens a buffet of a number of things, but the only thing that can make it possible is resources permitting for us to do so. There are resources. We do have commissioners. I trust them. They are very good at what they do, and they are able to do those functions. And we will not have too much of a problems of budgetary issues we're talking about if we can execute some of those strategies beyond, don't just just dispute resolution. For example, the issue of training and empowerment, because if we're going to be serious about issues of a capable state that is embraced in development, you need the agents of change to do that. And in our entity, including in the bargaining councils, we have those people. It's a matter of how we use them for us to be self-sustainable. So it's a very exciting question, and thank you for that question. I think we can. So answering the question directly, yes, we do. We can influence economic policy. I mean, the role we play in TERS, for example, our temporary employment, that concept can be developed, and we're going to have an engagement with the minister and the deputy minister about it. Because the moment you can save 5,000 jobs, you have contributed in mitigating unemployment and poverty. But when you do so, you must find strategies to sustain it. It can't be short-term, 6 months, 1 year, then you're dead. You must sustain it, and that continues to do this. So through UIF, Productivity SA, DTI, we can then improve that product that we already have on how we can make a meaningful economic development that is sustainable through that eye, because we can. So we are going to discuss that with the minister and the DG. We had a discussion in the ILO also about strategies that we can implement. We've agreed on a couple of things that we're going to do, and we feel excited about it. So we're going to have a meeting, and then and I think when we come back later, maybe in the third quarter, the fourth quarter, we can present a program that we think we can do, and where your role as legislature can play in making that possible. Let me close it on that, because that one is a very exciting, it's a very big and a very broad subject, which I'm very excited about. It's very progressive and very helpful. Chairperson, I think we've covered the questions other than the commentaries which were made. Can I leave it at that? If I missed any question, we are happy to respond. If I did, I think Honorable Bagram, it was more of a commentary also on concerns, and Honorable Untitled as well, in Nombele, we're echoing that, which we appreciate and note. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chair. I can proceed from Nedlac. Thank you very much. I should also start by appreciating the kind words coming from the members. We appreciate the general level of goodwill. Maybe let me start by asking the Acting Chief Operations Officer of the Presidential Climate Commission to take the question on climate resilience and vulnerable communities, and that I'll come back to wrap up with all the Nedlac related questions. Mr. Ngumalo.
Yeah, thank you very much, ED, and good afternoon, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, Honorable Minister, Deputy Ministers, and colleagues. Just a quick one on my side. I mean, recently we've made recommendations on disaster management, and especially what we're looking at there is really just the improvement of the disaster management approach in South Africa. And we've tabled those recommendations, including giving them directly to the minister responsible for corporate governance and traditional affairs, whom really the mandate lies with. And in the Chair, what we're simply saying is there needs to be really some elevated and centralized approach to how we are managing disasters. And we also need to establish, in a way, a multi-agency, interdepartmental and multi-sectoral management approach to disasters. We need to improve early warning systems really at a community level to ensure that there is early warning and signaling around disasters, and that major impacts are really avoided, especially when it comes to the loss of life. We've also spoken in those recommendations, Chair, about promoting a culture of proactive resilience building. So not only just really looking at the response, but also what else can we do, particularly from an infrastructure point of view, in terms of building resilience, and also building resilience for quick responses to disasters. So the elements that speaks to particularly the climate finance aspects. So we've really started that off on the year. And then we've moved on, Chair, to now work on a just transition, a just adaptation and resilience investment platform. Really here, Chair, we are seeking to pull together some of the planning that has happened, particularly, or at least as a starting point. We're looking primarily at the water sector, the built environment sector, and the agriculture sector. Agriculture from a food security point of view, water sector from a water security point of view, and generally the built environment and the ecological infrastructure under the built environment sector, to really start thinking through what are some of the investment pathways that we could follow in line with our decarbonization path towards 2050. That will really yield some very strong sentiments from a resilience building point of view, which is in line also with what we've said on our disaster review recommendations, but also not only that, also help communities really on the ground to really adapt to climate change impacts. And then, Chair, what we've also done as a test case following the recent sixth assessment report of the IPCC, we've went to Nelson Mandela Bay, working with the business chamber there, working with the municipality there, to really look at the climate resilient development pathway strategy for the municipality, which will not only respond to the Climate Change Act as recently assented into law, but will also, Chair, further assist with locally considered investments and projects that are seeking to improve the resilience of the Nelson Mandela Bay and further enhance the adaptive capacity of the very same municipality. So, Chair, there are pockets of work that we've started on the whole, and that we are looking to sort of build towards this just adaptation and resilience investment platform that we are hoping to launch at the end of this financial year. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Tumi. Chair, from our side, I think that we could group the questions directed at us into two broad areas, but ultimately they all probably revolve around budgets, funds, adequacy of resources. And I'm going to try and answer in two bits, from the known to the unknown. I'm starting with the known. Indeed, the budget of Nedlac has been undergoing cuts for a bit, and at some point it was a function of efficiencies within Nedlac, and with the state, with government, with administration, when you demonstrate ability, capability to be efficient, to say once a time, especially during COVID, when Nedlac returned some money to Treasury, and therein may well be the reason why the budgets were cut at that point. Now, as a consequence of that, over a period of time, Nedlac has sought to adjust to doing more with less. So there are certain things that in certain organizations may be par for the course, and in Nedlac may well be, for example, because a lot of our work involves organizing, facilitating discussions, facilitating engagements, and all of those. We have come to appreciate that we don't need our staff to always be on the road. So where they don't need to be in the office, they are able to take up those meetings as long as they keep within the established protocols, the timeframes within which to produce reports and to do the work that they're expected to do. And another one of our survival tactics and I think it applies to all organizations. I think even CCMA may have cited it. We do a bit of collaborations with like-minded organizations, like the ILO, such that we can engage in impactful work without having to tap too much into our balance sheet. So based on that kind of a mindset, you will see, Chair and members, that whenever we would experience these budget cuts, and that is why we're not making an issue out of the 13% budget cuts, is because whenever we face a budget cut, we look in and see what is it that we can cut on. And if you were to have a look, a hawk's eye on Nedlac, you see it's a mean and lean machine. It's a nimble organization. We have kept salary increases to within a minimum. We have kept we have resisted potential bloating of staff. For example, there's 2 senior management positions that we have not filled because we looked at our budget and thought we will not be able to fill these positions. Fortunately, luckily, and I'm making the point, I suppose, because the members have been generous with us, have been so I suppose there's only so much you can take, you can absorb before you start imploding. Right now, we have not started imploding, but if there's an opportunity for us to find ways in which we can start, there is so much that we've removed from our bone. I mean, certain things that other institutions may consider normal things to have. For us, we tend to consider those as frills. And when we budget, we do not budget for those. I mean, for example, certain ICT systems, certain aspects of travel, certain aspects of CAPEX. Fortunately, the building we are in is owned by us, but it is not necessarily in the best state that we would love for it to be in. And if we had extra monies here and there, we would obviously renovate it in such a way that it meets the needs, not just our needs, but the needs of our social partners and the needs of our clients and customers, those that come and be with us. So to the question, will the cuts not impact on the performance of your APP? Our straight answer is no, because even though we have cut almost to the bone, but we have cut out virtually everything that is not necessarily our core business. And that which is our core business, we're not compromising any of it. There are opportunities. Obviously, as a new person, as a new executive director in the job, there are certain things that I think we could do better, and we will look to do better. There was a question on whether we shouldn't be approaching, the private sector, philanthropies, and all of those things. But the point, I think, and I'm actually repeating the point that Commissioner Cameron made about CCMA. The reason why institutions like Nedlac should be wholly state-funded is exactly that their independence, their impartiality, because they do a very critical job in society. They have to do it in such a way that no one ever questions their impartiality. No one ever questions their independence. And even if a philanthropic organization or a private entity, even a foreign government, even if they were to give us grants to do work in line with our core business, without saying do things this way, there is always a possibility that someone out there might say they have arrived at that kind of report because they were funded by so and so and so. And that is why organizations, entities like Nedlac should, as much as possible, rely on the fiscus to do their work. This is not to say there is no room, opportunity for grants, and there's a way in which those can be directed and redirected to do certain jobs that are supportive to our work in such a way that what remains can increase for purposes of doing our core business. I hope members get me in that regard. And then the other set of questions, and this is where I'm moving towards the unknown. The other set of questions revolves around the national dialogue. You know, there's I saw the presidency has sought to clarify the issue about the 700 million budget, that there is no such, that kind of thing. And there's there are members that say, would you be able to take some of that and put it into your medium-term expenditure framework? Of course, that is not possible. But maybe 2 or 3 points to be made about the national dialogue and where Nedlac is concerned. For us, it makes sense that the national dialogue would have Nedlac as its secretariat, because it's probably Nedlac is probably the state institution closest to what is envisaged to be the exercise of the national dialogue. Social dialogue, engagements, facilitation, report writing, following up on this and that, and ultimately policy making, legislation, and all that goes with that. So it makes sense that the national dialogue should be, Nedlac should be associated with the national dialogue. I made the point right at the beginning that we are still trying to figure out, together with all those involved, what it means in practical terms. We have and part of this where learn as you go. We've had experience with the job summit where a project office was established in Nedlac. We have now a living example of the Presidential Climate Commission, where a cost center was established in Nedlac. A program was established in Nedlac. But outside of all of that, the PCC still maintained relative autonomy. It spends its money and with a broken reporting line to the Nedlac secretary. So the point I'm making is that we have models of success on which the national dialogue can rely, and that is why we anticipate that it is a job that can be carried out with relative ease. It does sound like an activity at a scale never experienced in South Africa. Maybe the organizations, entities closest to having experienced something like that would be organizations like the IEC, because they involve everyone in the country. And whenever I hear people talk about the national dialogue, the IEC tends to be one of those that they make reference to. And this is my last point. We do not expect that the national dialogue will be thrown at the lap of Nedlac without any resources associated with it. So we treat it and think of it as a funded mandate. And it being a funded mandate assumes certain things, that it will come with a budget, and it will come, and the budget will include a budget to do work, to procure this and that, but it will also include a budget to put warm bodies in the function. And where the National Dialogue will tap into Nedlac are the tried and tested systems that exist at Nedlac. The supportive infrastructure and all that relates to it, which will make sure that the National Dialogue proves to be a success at the end of the day. I think, Chair, because I decided to clap them all, I would like to believe that that covers every one of the questions, but if I miss any by mistake, I'm happy to look at it. Thank you, Chair.
Minister.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. I think my ED and my director have covered everything. And I see now they're strategic in saving their time so that they can use it as they come back to respond to the questions. They were quite elaborate, Chair, but as you can hear from what they've said as they responded, they showed that both entities remain indispensable pillars of our democratic developmental state, and each of them uniquely positioned to advance social cohesion, institutional trust, and labor market stability in an increasingly volatile and unequal economy. Nedlac is not just a forum, it is a constitutional practice of dialogue in action. It is where contested visions of South Africa's future are negotiated into shared programs of action, whether it is the steering of the just transition, processing of complex reforms such as basic income grant, or balancing trade-offs in economic policy. Nedlac's relevance has never ceased and never changes to be more apparent. So at this time, when we are engaging on public and national dialogue, the role of Nedlac cannot be overemphasized. And the Nedlac's credibility as neutral convener and strategic consensus builder remains one of our country's greatest strengths. That is why the President has entrusted it with the National Dialogue, signaling a new era for Nedlac and for the Department of Employment and Labor, one in which Nedlac becomes the architect, not just the facilitator of a renewed social compact. So as government, we are fully committed to resourcing and capacitating Nedlac so it can meet this historic mandate, even amid fiscal constraints. So, Chairperson, the issue of the financial constraints is something that we are quite awake to, and we understand that we've got tight budgetary ceilings, but the demands on the state are also immense. But that can't be the reason for us and these institutions like Nedlac to retreat. It must give us a reason to invest smarter, coordinate better, and innovate faster. We are committed in finding sustainable ways to ensure Nedlac not only survives this fiscal period, but thrives beyond it. On CCMA, Chair, CCMA continues to demonstrate that excellence, and it is possible to continue even under these financial constraints, and it remains one of the few institutions that delivers clean audits, as the members have said, consistently, while expanding its reach to those most in need. But like Nedlac, the CCMA too faces a paradox of growing demand and shrinking resources. So, Chair, we are seeing the reality which is clear, and no amount of efficiency can fully substitute for adequate resourcing. The CCMA plays a crucial role, not only in establishing workplaces, but also in giving voice of the working poor or to the working poor, the informal sector, and those excluded from traditional forms of representations. And that function of giving justice where there is imbalance cannot be compromised. Therefore, we're also committing that we will continue to explore all viable avenues to ensure both CCMA and Nedlac are equipped not just to function, but to lead. We are strengthening interdepartmental collaboration, looking at blended funding models, and also revisiting cost structures, always with the aim of protecting the integrity and impact of these institutions, as both the Director, CCMA, and AD Nedlac have also committed before this committee. Ultimately, both Nedlac and CCMA must remain agents of transformation change. We cannot allow them to become reactive bureaucracies. They must help us in shaping the policy, in shifting public discourse, and in serving as active levers of equity and justice. We are committed, Chair, in ensuring that these two entities are indeed supported. And we are saying, in a time of polarization, economic insecurity, and institutional fragility, South Africa needs more dialogue, not less, more labor peace, not more litigations, and more social solidarity, not more fragmentation. And both Nedlac and CCMA are custodians of that vision. And the Department of Employment and Labor will work with them, invest in them, and defend their mandates, because the future of work depends on that support and the work that they do. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, and the team from the CCMA and Nedlac on this one. And honorable members, you have received responses based both on the comments made as well as the direct questions that you would have asked. And I take it that there is no question that has not been responded to, but it's work in progress. I think that the points really to make on this one is that at least there's unanimity amongst members in terms of the need to fight for more resources as it relates to these entities, in particular to the CCMA in dealing with the backlogs and in a way that ensures that the times could be shortened in terms of matters that get to be before them, because then they'll have the ability to appoint adequate numbers and time allocation to those commissioners to resolve matters that are before them. And we are looking at this as the CCMA would have directed that one, maybe some of these matters may need legislation, but they also refer to something called creative ways. They do have proposals on those. And that reminded me then of a point I would have forgotten on how they also need to get extra income by having efficiencies as it relates to rentals, using the TDM. We have spoken about that matter for some time. And I want us to then be practical, that Honorable Minister, we can receive
now these proposals in writing, so that for those that may have to wait for legislative changes, we start to work on those changes either side. But on those matters that need Parliament as things stand, in the appropriation process, there's still space to make inputs before you get budgets to be finalized. That happens, and most of the time it's an area that has not been exercised adequately by Parliament. So we usually go with what you put before us on the basis that the projects have been thought through and so on. But I think with this challenge that it gets to be motivated all the time, but you get cuts instead of being helped with the increase. I think the committee in its role must then come to the party, as I say, within the current legislative framework, where submissions get to be made and so on at committee level, engaging with the appropriations committee and so on. So at least that's provided for in law currently. So would need all that to come before us. Interesting points raised include the role that you play, whether you call it advocacy work, where you go out to train people and so on. But that comes at a cost. Whereas if it's training and it's got about developing the skills at that level in a way that ensures that you have less disputes and all that, because people are skilled enough to can handle these matters at their own level, such that they don't escalate. It then talks to other questions that employers and employees contribute in one way or the other for such things to happen. Whether from saving jobs, you are using the UIF as the platform, but skills levies are also paid to ensure that you continue to do that work. You even do it, I think I saw one schedule where the department is taking employment equity, especially the new determination on targets and so on, just to workshop how people get to work on this, accompanied by CCMA on a different topic that they deal with on abuses and so on. That training is also taking place with employers and employees. So I think there must be a way of looking at, as you said, creatively, how that gets to be leveraged somewhere else, so that you don't also have underspending of billions on an area where others are doing work with the little resources that they have, when they could leverage from that. And I'm raising this with the reasonable assumption that those that train people are indeed accredited trainers in their own right, and that's why they are able to do so. So with the legislative amendments that are coming, I can imagine that you'll have more of these training workshops coming through, just to make sure people understand the implications of the new amendments and how we make everything to work in that scope. So I just thought I should raise the point that we now need it reduced to writing, look at those options, but especially where we are also expected to play a role, that we can begin to appreciate playing that role the earlier the better. With regard to Nedlac, I think for me the summary will really be that you are giving assurance from the Nedlac side that you are ready to take up the task and that the cuts would not make you not to do your work. However, you are also saying it does not mean that you have to tighten the belt to a point where you collapse at the end if there was to be an injection that keeps the entity alive and not get to a point of implosion. Because for now, there may be no such indication, but the more cuts you have, it's going to be real. Because if the survival is because you are not filling any of the positions, it is unless they are not in need. It was just one of those ones you have. But if it's areas of need, it definitely means that somebody has to triple up in terms of doing work, because you have to cover the space that needs to be performed by somebody else. And because they are human, there will be a time when they are worn out completely. So I think understand that the committees look at the resources that also go to that side, not to be saying you are probably not creative enough in that you are working even with these constraints and having that can basically make the institution move. So we're not saying that, but it's really to say we must put the case why we need to look at the resourcing of these two entities as important entities. I think that's really that in terms of what has been raised, and how one would want to summarize that. I take it that Mr. Sagasa, there's no other item in relation to the department and the entities for purposes of today, except if for committee, yes?
No, Chair, that was the only point today, Chair.
Thank you. So I see, Honorable Minister, you are raising your hand on the point.
I was looking for the icon of two hands put together to say thank you. I didn't find it now. I pressed my mistake. Sorry.
Okay. All right, Minister. I thought there was a point that you wanted a bit of extension of time. We finished quite early, so you would have already booked out to spend time with the committee. We would have looked at that. But all I'm saying is to really thank you for the presentation, but more importantly, the commitment to make the effort to respond to questions of members, quite empowering, including the opportunity to use the political overview to really take us through the journey, including the work that's being done on the international platform and how it affects us as the country. But more importantly, the contribution we make as the country in shaping up the international space in this area of work. We really do appreciate with that. Thanks, Honorable Minister and your team, as would be releasing you. I'm checking with Mr. Sagasa if that was the last item completely, because I don't see the flighted agenda on my side now.
That was the last item, Chair, for today.
No, thank you. Thank you, honorable members. Thanks for your contributions. Let's keep on being robust in the way we are, but with a great deal of decorum in how we engage matters. The meeting stays adjourned until we meet again. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Chair.
you, Chair.
Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.